Okay, let's be real for a second. I think we've all been there at some point, right?
Yeah.
You get this amazing idea for an AI project, something that's going to totally change the game.
Yeah, that aha moment
But then, you know, things get in the way, and that big idea never really gets off the ground.
happens all the time. So many AI projects, they just kind of fizzle out before they even really begin.
Exactly. So in this deep dive, we're going to break down AI pilots. It's kind of like, think of it as a test flight before you launch a whole rocket. We really want to help you get your AI projects, you know, actually launched and avoid those frustrating false starts.
I like that, the test flight analogy. That's really what an AI pilot is all about. Minimizing risk, getting those early insights before you invest a ton of resources. We want to make sure it works, right?
Absolutely. And there's a real need for this kind of approach. Civo, they're a cloud provider, and they did this survey, right? And they found that over 75% of AI projects, they never actually launch. And a lot of them, they get stuck somewhere between like 26 and 50% completion.
Yeah, I've seen those numbers. It's kind of a reality check. But even the big players, like Google, even they are all about starting small, you know? Prove the value first and then scale up.
So much more strategic.
Exactly.
Let's talk about the benefits of starting with an AI pilot. We're talking risk mitigation, cost-effective validation, getting those performance insights. You can iteratively improve things and make informed decisions based on real data.
All those benefits, they really work together. But if we just focus on risk for a second, one of the best things about a pilot is you get to test your AI in a controlled space. So you can spot problems early on before they turn into massive headaches.
Can you give a real-world example of how that works?
Sure. So let's say you're a retail company and you want to use AI to, I don't know, improve inventory management, right? Instead of overhauling your entire system, you could start with a pilot program that just focuses on one product line, something manageable.
Yeah, like maybe a product line that's seasonal, so you have those ups and downs in demand.
Exactly, something with a clear impact. And within that pilot, you want to set really specific objectives. So let's say your goal is to reduce stockouts by, let's say, 10% within 3 months by using AI-driven forecasting. That's a KPI, a key performance indicator that's tied to a real business outcome.
So it's not just we want to use AI to do better with inventory. You actually have like a target to measure your success against.
Right. And by testing in this controlled way, you might find out that the data you're feeding the AI, well, it's not as accurate as you thought. Or maybe the algorithm needs some adjustments to deal with those seasonal demand swings.
Makes sense. So it's like you find and fix the issues before you roll it out to the entire company.
Exactly. Like a stress test. Before you open a bridge to traffic, you got to make sure it can handle the load.
Right. Find those weak points early. So now let's shift gears a little bit and talk about building the right team for your AI pilot. I feel like this is where it gets really interesting.
Yeah, it's almost like assembling like a superhero team, each with their own special powers.
I love that.
So first, you got to have the business leaders. They're the ones who are going to champion the whole project, right? And they're the ones who are going to define those success metrics we were talking about. Then you need your data scientists and engineers. They're the ones building and refining the AI models.
And of course, we can't forget about IT. They got to make sure the whole infrastructure can handle everything. Oh, and the project managers. They keep the whole operation running smoothly and on budget.
It's definitely a team effort. Like any superhero team, they got to communicate, got to be on the same page about the goals, the challenges. Everyone has to understand how their role contributes to the success of the mission.
And speaking of essential ingredients, let's talk about data. Data is the lifeblood of any AI project, right? You can have the best team in the world, the most amazing algorithms, but without good data, you're going nowhere.
Data is king. That's what we always say at Kanerika.
Hmm.
And it's not just about the amount of data, it's about the right data.
Yeah. A lot of AI projects, they fail because they didn't think about the data part carefully enough. You need clean data, consistent data, and data that's actually relevant to train those AI models properly.
It's true. Think about it. It's like trying to bake a cake with bad ingredients. No matter how good the baker is, the cake's not going to turn out right. Data's the same way for AI.
Okay, so how can companies make sure they've got good data for their AI pilot?
Well, at Kanerika, we've got a lot of experience with this. One of the key things is data cleansing and normalization. That means getting rid of any errors, inconsistencies, duplicates in your data set.
So it's like cleaning and organizing your pantry before you start cooking.
Exactly. Then you got to think about data formatting. Different AI algorithms, they need the data structured in specific ways. So you might have to convert text into numbers, create new variables, or combine data from different sources.
So it's not just the data itself. It's about making sure the data is in a format that the AI can actually understand and use.
Precisely. And we haven't even touched on the tools and the technology.
Oh, right. Choosing the right tools can be like a bit of a maze. There are so many options out there, from open source frameworks to like those powerful cloud-based platforms. Where do you even begin?
It can definitely feel overwhelming. The key is to pick tools that match your needs, your resources, your level of expertise, that sort of thing.
I guess it's kind of like choosing a car for a road trip. You'd pick a compact car for a solo weekend getaway, but for a family vacation across the country, you'd probably want a bigger SUV, right?
Exactly. If you're just starting out, and you need something easy to use, there are a bunch of low-code options out there. But if you're doing something more complex, something that needs customization, you might go for something like TensorFlow. It's that
Yeah.
open source library that's popular for deep learning.
And for companies that need to run like really big experiments, or they have massive amounts of data to deal with, there are those cloud-based platforms like Microsoft Azure ML or Google Cloud's AI platform. Those can be game changers.
Oh yeah, they offer a ton of scalability and computing power that can be essential for some AI projects. But you gotta remember, with great power comes,
Great responsibility.
well, yeah, but also more complexity and potentially higher costs. You gotta weigh the benefits against your budget and how much technical expertise you have.
So true. It's easy to get excited about all the cool tools,
Yeah.
but you got to be realistic about what actually makes sense for your project and your organization.
Absolutely. And that kind of brings us to another really important point, setting realistic timelines and budgets. AI projects, especially pilots, they don't happen overnight.
It takes planning, resources, and patience.
Exactly. Think of it like building a house. You don't expect to just move in after a couple weeks. It takes time to lay the foundation, build the walls, get the plumbing and electrical in. Each step needs time and the right people.
Okay, so let's say we've done all the prep work, right? We've got our use case figured out. We've assembled our amazing team. Our data is clean and organized. We've picked our tools, and we've got a realistic budget and timeline. What's next? Time to hit the ground running.
Almost. We're still in pilot mode, so I want to start small and stay agile.
So no massive launch, more like sending in a small team first to, scout things out.
Exactly. You might start by rolling out your AI solution to just a few users or testing it on a small portion of your data.
So it's like gathering some intel, figuring out what works and what doesn't, and then refining the strategy before you go all in.
Exactly. And during this phase, using agile methodologies is key. Breaking the project down into smaller, manageable chunks, each with its own specific goals.
So you can be more flexible, make changes as you go.
Exactly. You're constantly learning, adapting based on what you're seeing in the real world.
Makes sense. Okay, so our pilot is running, we're being agile, we're collecting feedback, we're adapting. What's the next critical element?
Monitoring. Got to keep an eye on things. You can't just set it in motion and hope for the best.
Right, so dashboards, regular check-ins, making sure the team's analyzing data and looking for trends.
It's like steering a ship.
Yeah.
You're always adjusting course based on the wind, the currents, the information you're getting from your instruments.
And you got to be ready to make those course corrections quickly.
Exactly. And while we're talking about monitoring, it's really important to remember that even the most, incredible AI is useless if people don't use it or if they find it frustrating. So getting feedback from users throughout the pilot, that's crucial.
It's about understanding how people are actually using the AI, right? What are the pain points? And then using that feedback to make the design and functionality better.
Right. Imagine you're testing a chatbot for customer service, and you realize through feedback that it's too formal, too technical. That could leave customers feeling lost or confused.
So you'd use that feedback to adjust the chatbot's tone and language, make it more conversational, more human.
Exactly. The goal is for AI to work with people, help them, not replace them.
Okay, so let's fast forward. The pilot's finished. We've got all this great data. We've improved our design. We understand how people are using the system. Time for the final evaluation, right?
Yeah, exactly. But success isn't just about whether the AI works from a technical point of view. It's about whether it meets those business goals we set out in the beginning.
Right, those KPIs, those key performance indicators. We got to ask, did we hit our targets? Did we see a real improvement? Like, did we save money? Did we increase efficiency? Are customers happier?
You got it. Going back to the inventory example, did the AI forecasting actually reduce those stockouts by 10%? Did it lead to lower storage costs or maybe even higher sales?
That's the kind of data we need to look at to see if the pilot was a success.
Absolutely. And even if you didn't hit every single target, it's still a learning experience, right?
Right. You can take those insights, the good and the bad, and use them to make the solution better.
Exactly. And, for a lot of companies, the biggest hurdle comes after the pilot, when it's time to go from a small test to, full-scale implementation across the whole company.
Scaling up, that's a whole different ballgame.
Oh, it is. A successful pilot, that's just the first step. And that's where a lot of companies, they hit a wall.
Yeah, the stats show that, right? Scaling up is often the #1 challenge in getting AI projects from the pilot phase to full production.
It's understandable. Scaling up means you need a lot more planning, more resources, more coordination. It's not just about doing the same things, but bigger. You might have to rethink your processes, upgrade your infrastructure. There are all sorts of new challenges when you go from a controlled test to, a live environment.
So how do companies make that leap successfully? What are the strategies for scaling up?
That's a great question, and it's one we think about a lot at Kanerika. We've helped a ton of organizations scale their AI solutions, and we've learned a lot along the way.
Well, I'm ready to hear those strategies. Let's dive into that in the next part of our deep dive.
All right, let's talk about those strategies for scaling up successfully. First things first, you got to take those lessons you learned during the pilot and use them, really use them to make your solution better.
So it's like after the initial scouting mission, you analyze what you learned and adjust your plans before you send in the whole army.
Exactly. The pilot, that's your testing ground. You figure out where the model is weak, if there are gaps in your data, if the user experience needs some work. Maybe the AI had trouble with certain types of input, or a particular feature just wasn't working for people.
So you tweak the model, the data, maybe even the interface before you go big.
You got it. The pilot gives you a chance to optimize based on real-world feedback.
Makes sense. What's the next big step in scaling?
It's like setting those objectives for the pilot, remember? You need clear objectives for scaling too.
Yeah.
What does success look like when you're at full scale? Are you trying to reach a certain number of users? Do you want to hit specific targets for efficiency or cost savings across the whole organization?
So those become your benchmarks for expansion.
Exactly. And while we're talking about essentials, we can't forget about data. Data readiness is critical when you're scaling. We talked about having the right data for the pilot, but when you scale up, you often have way more data, maybe from a lot of different sources.
That sounds like it could get really complicated.
It can be. You got to make sure the data is good, consistent, and accessible across the entire organization. You might need new data pipelines, invest in some data governance tools,
Yeah.
train your teams on best practices.
It's like upgrading your plumbing to handle a bigger flow of water.
Perfect analogy. And while we're thinking about infrastructure, can your systems handle the increased load when you scale up? Do you need more powerful servers, cloud resources, maybe some specialized hardware?
You might start with a small boat for the pilot, but when you scale, you might need a tanker to handle everything.
Exactly. You got to anticipate those needs early on. Make sure everything can scale smoothly along with your AI solution.
We've talked a lot about the tech side of things, but what about the people? Scaling up usually means bringing new teams and departments into the project.
You're right. That's huge. Training and change management become even more important when you're scaling. People need to understand how to use these new AI tools, how their jobs might change, how they can contribute to making the project successful.
It's not just about the technology. It's about bringing everyone along.
Absolutely. You have to address their concerns, provide training, create a culture where everyone's collaborating and learning.
And it's not just about training individuals, right? It's about getting different teams and departments to work together.
Totally. Cross-departmental integration, that's essential for scaling up successfully. You got to break down those silos, make sure the AI solution is woven into the whole fabric of the company. Imagine trying to build a skyscraper with teams working on different floors without talking to each other.
That's a recipe for disaster.
Exactly. You need communication, coordination, a shared vision to build something truly great.
Okay, so we've scaled up our infrastructure, we've trained our people, we've got all the teams working together. What's next on the scaling checklist?
Monitoring and continuous improvement. It's just as crucial in the scaling phase as it was during the pilot.
So we're not just setting it loose and hoping for the best.
No way. AI isn't something you can just set and forget. You need to stay on top of it, make adjustments, keep it aligned with your business needs and all the changes happening in technology.
Keep those dashboards running, analyze the data, be ready to make changes.
You might find that as the amount of data grows, the AI's accuracy drops a bit, or some users are running into problems. You got to catch those things early and address them.
So scaling isn't just a one-time thing. It's an ongoing process. You're always monitoring, adapting, improving.
Absolutely. And as you scale, new challenges pop up, but so do new opportunities. You have to be adaptable and always looking for ways to improve.
Makes sense. We've covered a lot about scaling, but before we move on, I want to touch on something you mentioned before about celebrating those early wins. Why is that so important, especially when scaling can be so tough?
It's a good point. It's easy to get bogged down in all the challenges and forget to acknowledge the progress you're making.
Yeah, those little victories along the way, they can really boost morale and keep everyone motivated.
Exactly. Did your scaled up AI solution streamline a process? Did it save a bunch of money? Did customer satisfaction go up? Celebrate those things. They prove you're on the right track. All the hard work is worth it. And that investment in AI is paying off.
Like those mile markers in a marathon, they give you a boost, remind you why you started running in the first place, and keep you going.
That's a great way to put it. Celebrate those wins, even the small ones.
Yeah.
It helps to keep everyone going and build a sense of accomplishment.
Speaking of celebrating, I got to give a shout out to you and the whole team at Kanerika. You're doing amazing work helping all sorts of companies use AI in really smart ways.
Well, thanks. We're definitely passionate about AI and what it can do. We've seen how it can solve tough problems, create new opportunities, and really make a difference when it's done right.
And you're not just talking about it, you're out there doing it. Kanerika has a whole range of services, from consulting and development to data engineering and analytics. You guys are like a one-stop shop for AI.
That's what we're going for. We've got experts with deep experience across a ton of industries, and we work side by side with our clients to understand their needs and build solutions that get results.
So for anyone listening who's feeling inspired, ready to explore AI, where should they start? What's that first step?
Just reach out to us, head over to the Kanerika website, book a consultation, and let's chat. The future is out there, and it's powered by AI.
I like it, a call to action. But before we wrap up this part, I want to go back to that stat we mentioned earlier, that more than 75% of AI projects never actually launch. What's the main thing you want our listeners to remember from this deep dive?
Yeah, that number can be a little scary. But the point isn't to discourage anyone. The key takeaway is that if you have a good strategy, start with a well-planned pilot, and then scale up in a thoughtful way, your chances of success go way up.
It's about taking the risk out of AI, turning those big ideas into something real, and using it to improve businesses.
Exactly. That's what makes this whole field so exciting. AI has the power to change the way we work, live, interact with the world. But it's up to us to use that power the right way.
You know, I always like to end these deep dives with a question for our listeners to think about. So here it is. What business problem could you solve with an AI pilot?
Think about your biggest challenges, the things that take up the most time, the things that maybe humans alone can't solve.
What keeps you up at night? What opportunities are you missing? What could you achieve if you had AI helping you?
Those are the questions that can lead you to the perfect AI pilot project, something that can really make a difference in your company.
And remember, Kanerika is here to help you every step of the way.
We've helped tons of companies design, implement, and scale AI solutions in all kinds of industries. We know the challenges, the potential pitfalls, and we're passionate about helping our clients reach their AI goals.
So what are you waiting for? The future is calling, and it's powered by AI. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.
You know, it's really exciting to hear about all the cool things companies are doing with AI. But I think it's also important to remember that it's not always easy, right? There are going to be challenges, unexpected roadblocks, and times when you just feel like giving up.
Oh, for sure. AI projects, especially when you're trying to scale them up, can be super complex. There's a lot involved, lots of people, and it's easy for things to, go off track.
So what advice would you give to someone who's feeling overwhelmed, maybe a little discouraged? What helps you stay motivated when things get tough?
One thing that's helped me, and I always tell our clients this too, is to remember the why. Why did you start this whole AI project in the first place? What are you hoping to achieve? What problem are you trying to solve? Yeah, getting back to that core purpose can really help you get through those rough patches.
It's true. It's easy to get lost in all the technical details, the data, the algorithms, but if you remember the big picture, the impact you're trying to make, that can give you the energy to keep going.
It's a good reminder that it's not just about the technology itself, it's about using it to make a positive difference.
Absolutely. And sometimes that difference might be something small, like making someone's job easier, automating a boring task, helping a customer find what they need faster.
Yeah, those might seem like small wins, but they can have a big impact overall.
Right, and those small wins, like we said before, they're worth celebrating. They're steps toward those bigger AI goals.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with one last thought. The AI world is constantly changing. What's cutting edge today might be old news tomorrow.
That's what's so great about it, and also what makes it challenging. You got to be a lifelong learner, stay curious, be open to new things, and keep pushing the limits.
It's not just about knowing the latest algorithms. It's about having that mindset of always learning and exploring.
Exactly. The future of AI is being shaped right now by people who are willing to experiment, to innovate, and to do things differently.
So to everyone out there who has big dreams, who are excited about AI and who are ready to start their own AI journey, I say this: don't be afraid to take that first step.
The world needs your ideas, your passion, your willingness to try new things. And remember, you don't have to do it alone. Kanerika is here to help you along the way.
That's a great message to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of AI pilots. Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible with AI.